Hey, what is poppin', y'all? It is your boy, it is Guard3, and welcome back to the morning show. And of course, joining me this morning is my boy, it is Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
Doing great on a Friday, getting ready to talk some sports, a little NFL, a little NBA, and of course some wrestling. So let's get it.
No, absolutely. Now, I figure why don't we start out with the NBA? We got some news last night. Of course, uh, unfortunate news, Victor Wembanyama is out for the rest of the season. They found a blood clot in his shoulder, which this is something I emphasized last night. To be clear, this is not the same as the Chris Bosh situation, so let's not, jump to that conclusion right away. But he will miss the rest of the season. They've already said that this is probably just an isolated incident. Mo, what are your thoughts on, the whole Wemby situation and I guess the direction of the Spurs going forward?
Look, obviously it's disappointing news for the franchise, disappointing news for NBA fans and Wimby himself. But I like that the fact they're erring on the side of caution. He's not just the future of their franchise; he's one of the big pieces going forward to be a face of the NBA. So yeah, it's disappointing, but you have to think about his health, his long term welfare, and like you pointed out, while it's not something to be taken lightly, it is not the same as Chris Bosh. Obviously, you cannot compete in contact sports when you're under blood thinners. You just can't. Um, and so, like I said, it's disappointing. We wish Wimby a fast recovery. Can't wait to see the young man back out on the floor doing what he does. And it's tough for the Spurs going forward, but I think when you have a competitor and a leader like Chris Paul, a talented and gifted player like De'Aaron Fox, they do still have talent on that roster. It's you still try to compete. You go for this is what I talk about in competition. We lose Wimby, but you can hang your head or you can go out and compete. And I thought they proved that last night. They went out and won last night, minus Wimby. So I think you put your best foot forward. You're going to play a little bit more younger guys in the rotation. We had this conversation that should they shut some of the guys, some of the veterans who aren't 100% down, and try to level up when it comes to the value of their draft pick. And I totally understand that. Even if they don't do it, they do have draft picks. They do have draft assets. So knowing the Spurs and the kind of organization that they are, I don't think that they're going to shut it down or semi-tank. I think they're just going to go forward. I think they're going to play it out. And if they find a way to get into the play-in, look, I'm not a Spurs fan. I'm an NFL fan, or NBA fan. But do you not think I won't be rooting for the Spurs if they find a way to? Of course I will, because that to me would be very impressive, and that would just elevate the leadership of a Chris Paul. So it is a tough break overall for the league and for the Spurs franchise. But I think they're going to go forward and keep competing.
No, absolutely. The only reason I thought that maybe the only guy I really think that they should consider shutting down is De'Aaron Fox, because De'Aaron Fox has been dealing with an injured finger that's been reported since he was still in Sacramento. So I think that if he needs surgery or anything to heal that up, then you just go get it real quick and make sure you're 100% by next year. But no, I completely agree. Listen, if he can play through it and he can still ball out and he's comfortable with it, yeah, sure. Just go ahead, keep winning games. Not only do you have your pick, you also have the Atlanta Hawks pick. You have two picks in a really loaded draft. So I'm excited to see the development of the young guys in the second half of the year, and definitely excited for Wemby to be back. But this also impacts the DPOY race.
Correct.
All year, it was Wemby's to lose. Now, he's not going to be eligible for the award. He's not going to play enough games. So, And by the way, remember, this does have massive financial implications now. Jaren Jackson Jr. now becomes the odds-on favorite. If he wins it, he's eligible for a Supermax. And then he's eligible for that $345 million contract. So this doesn't just affect Wemby. This almost sends a ripple effect. Because now, let's say if Jaren Jackson does win it, if he turns around to the Grizzlies and goes, I want a Supermax, do they balk at paying him? Are they worried about that? Do they maybe ship him off in a surprise move, kind of with the whole like Luka 2.0, where I don't want to pay this guy the Supermax. He's not taking anything else, so we might have to consider moving on from him. Like, do you think that we could potentially be headed toward some drama like that, Mo?
I think what happened with Luka, it's about finances more than anything. It's about money. They'll never say it, but cut and dry, they didn't want to pay Luka Doncic that max contract. Here's what I believe. I believe that if you look at the Grizzlies roster, look at how they're built. I said this last night and I stand by it. Their best player isn't John Morant, it's Jaren Jackson Jr. He's their best player. And I believe he's younger than John Morant. And I would say, barring a major injury, he's probably going to play at a higher level for a longer period of time than John Morant. So if I'm the Grizzlies here, this might be the standout conversation. This might be the crazy talk, if you will. If you're worried about the money, but you know you can't afford to lose Jaren Jackson Jr., you might want to ship Ja out so you can afford Jaren Jackson Jr. I know that sounds crazy, but he is their best player. It's not like one of those things without John Morant, they don't have a winning record. They actually do. John Morant's a terrific player. And there was a time when you thought this guy's going to be a franchise player. And it's not like he's fallen off a cliff and can't play. I just think that Jaren Jackson, just grew into being their best player. He impacts the game on both ends of the floor. They've got Desmond Bane, who's Mr. Consistent, Mr. Steady. If it's a financial situation, then they are a small market team. I think you lean towards keeping Jaren Jackson if you're thinking about the present and the future, and you make a huge move and you trade John Morant.
I'll say, yeah, when it comes to one thing I do like about Jaren Jackson is even if his offense is off, his defense is just always impactful. So he's always going to have an impact on the game regardless of his jumper is falling or not. Yeah, I think that, and I think that's a very real situation that they're going to have. There's already been rumors that they might look to move Ja or kind of started shopping him around. I did see those start to pop up. So I think this is something the Grizzlies are aware of, and I think that we could see, someone like Ja get shipped out. Or if somebody offers a king ransom, maybe they do consider moving on from Jaren. It'll be an interesting situation, but I do actually agree with you. I think that they end up moving Ja before they move Jackson Jr.
Yeah, because if you move Ja, you're moving an explosive, exciting, highlight reel talent, but he hasn't really added anything extra to his game. Look in the history of the NBA at explosive point guards and how they've aged. The only guy that I would say that's fought back farther time is Russell Westbrook. And even to some degree, he's not what he was. It's crazy because even today, he's a terrific athlete. He might still be one of the 15 best athletes in the league, but that just goes to show you how freakish an athlete he was in his peak, in his prime. Most explosive guards, they don't play for a long time. They become a lesser version of themselves, a less effective player. Not to mention John Morant's not a bigger guard. I think he's like 6'2", right? He's not a big guy. He's slight. I'm a John Morant fan, but I've told other people, I'm just afraid that he's going to become the next Steve Francis, and I don't want that for him. I feel like if you want to extend Ja's career, you don't make him your number one option. You make him actually the number two option and take some of the low. And by the way, if you watch the Grizzlies, everybody out there that's joining us, that's actually what they've done. They don't run the offense through him. He's part of the offense, but they keep it fluid. Bane has the ball. They run plays. They actually run pick and pop for Jaren Jackson. Aldama has the ball in his hands. He's able to create for others. Scottie Pippen Jr. has been very effective for them as a secondary ball handler. So I think they've already done that. The only problem is when you have a Ja Morant and you make him your second option, eventually he's going to want another deal. You can't pay Ja. I don't think Ja Morant's a max contract player. I don't. I think you give him a big contract, but I don't think he's a max contract player right now today, especially in Memphis. If you're going to tell me which one you would value more, Jaren Jackson or Ja Morant, you would value Jaren Jackson more. You could make the case, even though he's not a better player, I think Desmond Bane is a more consistent and steadier player.
And I think one interesting thing to note with the Memphis Grizzlies too is their play style. They've almost seemingly started to prepare for a possible Ja exit, or potentially because Ja Morant's a very good pick and roll player, which is what we saw in the past few years. I'm running a lot of pick and roll, pick and pop, but the Memphis Grizzlies have taken this new unique approach at offense where they just space it out and they won't run as much, pick and roll, or it's just player movement, where it's just swing the ball, attack a closeout. If you don't have anything, just swing it back out again. Except, everybody's always moving. So it's almost like they're trying to take the playmaking load off of him and maybe prepare some of these guys that, hey, just in case we do have to make a choice here, we want to get you guys ready so that we can still have a good offense, potentially without Ja Morant. It's almost like this offense that they've installed and ran is to make sure that they're just not over-reliant on one playmaker and to develop the rest. So I think that this is going to be a very interesting situation to look at going forward.
Let me ask you this, Brett. Don't you think that the owners seem to be kind of sending an obvious message? Like the De'Aaron Fox situation was different, but it really wasn't that different. They traded him because they knew he could say that he wanted to win, and I get that. But the biggest reason why they wanted to appease him, he was getting ready to come up and ask for his max, right? And they didn't want to give it to him. They didn't believe he was a max player. They moved off of him. Again, another small market team. And so you look at what they're doing. What they're saying is, we're going to go and build around Sabonis. We're going to make Sabonis the guy. I am not anti-Sabonis. I think he's a very good basketball player, but he's a secondary star. If you build around Sabonis, your height, your peak, your ceiling, if he's your best player, you might be good enough to get to the playoffs and get knocked out in the first round if he's your best player. But that's what they opted for. And the argument, they have a fair argument is, well, we had Sabonis and Fox, and we made the playoffs once, then we got knocked out, and we're barely hanging in there to compete for it now with both of them. There's a reason for that. They're both terrific players, but neither one of them are franchise players. This is a fact.
Yeah, and with Sabonis, he's weird because I almost don't think that they could trade him that easily if they wanted to. And the problem with a Sabonis trade, because I'm sure we'll hear that talk in the summer, Mo. Oh, blow it up, trade Sabonis, trade DeRozan. Sometimes a player just has so much value to one team that's not going to match the realistic output of the rest of the league. Domantas Sabonis, very talented player. However, you need to run the offense a certain way to get the most out of Sabonis. You need to put the ball in his hands, put him in the post, mainly on the elbows, and kind of just play make and run the offense through him. He's not necessarily a phenomenal off-ball player. His three-point shooting has improved, but I'm skeptical that all of a sudden he's a 40% three-point shooter overnight. So I think that Sabonis, I think he's there to stay, and I think the biggest drop-off or the problem why he won't get moved is because I feel like Sacramento's going to see him as this,
Yeah,
but teams are going to realize that they don't want to build their entire offensive structure around the play style and strengths of Sabonis because that requires a lot of change. And so I think at the end of the day, he's going to be stuck in Sacramento even if he wants to move.
I agree 100%. He's an incredibly productive player, very versatile big who you can run the offense through. And I think guys like Sabonis can be a huge piece in your team becoming a contender. So they have a guy. It's Sabonis. The problem is they don't have the guy on their roster for him to play alongside with. DeMar DeRozan is terrific, but he's not part of their future. He's 35. Zach LaVine is, I think, 29, 28, 29, who sometimes can make the game look incredibly easy, but he's not a franchise player either. Like, they have guys around him, but they have a weird roster construction that doesn't say we're built for the future. It says we got Sabonis. Let's see what we can do with him. I'm with you, Brett. I think he's stuck there. He's just good enough to where they can either barely make the playoffs or barely miss the playoffs, which means you're not bad enough to get a lottery pick. You know what I'm saying? And you're not quite good enough to get into the playoffs. And I think that's that purgatory, that NBA purgatory that San Antonio's in. I'm sorry, Sacramento's in. And I think a lot of NBA owners, if you're a small market owner and you haven't had any actual success on the court in recent years, a lot of these guys are just dropping salaries. Guys, why would the Hawks, if you think about it, get rid of DeAndre Hunter when he's a versatile 6'9" wing who can guard multiple positions and give you 18 to 20 points a night? That's what a lot of teams are looking for. That's you know what I'm saying? And with no hesitation, they got rid of him. And I get it. You want Jalen Johnson. I'm a Jalen Johnson fan. But you should have found a way to keep both of them together. Most teams would kill to have bookend wings, and the Hawks decided to go in another direction, and I don't understand that. I'm actually shocked, even though he's a terrific talent, always puts up numbers. I'm actually shocked that they hadn't looked at shopping Trae Young.
I'm sure they will at some point. It almost feels like this is kind of the weird new reality in the wake of the Luka trade where nobody feels safe. And it almost feels like at some point they will. At some point they'll look to move Trae Young. I don't think it'll be anytime like soon, but I believe in Trae Young. So I think he's a very talented.
He's an incredible offensive player. He might be the best pick and roll guy in the NBA. He might be. I'm not here to take away from his talent.
Yeah.
But do I believe Trae Young can be the best player on a title winning team? No. And the proof is in what's bred out over the breadth of his career there. He was the best player on a Hawks team that went on an incredible run. Basically, you could say Trae Young and the Hawks helped end Ben Simmons' tenure as a star in the NBA. But ever since that great run, they haven't done anything. I don't think you can win with a ball dominant 6'1", 6'2" point guard. That there's no way you're going to win a title with Trae Young as your best player.
No, that's fair enough. And we already mentioned the Luka trade. There was another trade that the Lakers tried to make, but it got voided. Obviously, we're talking. Key does not want us to relive that year, by the way. So I'm sorry, Key.
Sorry about that, Key.
We all know Dalton Knecht, Mark Williams, picks were involved, but the deal got voided due to Mark Williams failing a physical. Well, his agent has a lot of different things to say about that, but the main thing that him and Mark Williams have said is, I don't think it was about the physical. I think I passed the physical. This was not about the physical. They're pushing this idea that this trade was not voided because of the physical. So I'm curious, Mo, what are your thoughts on, them coming out and kind of refuting what the Lakers did and failing him because of the physical.
To begin with, you hit the nail on the head. Mark Williams' agent, the human being who's paid to advocate for Mark Williams. It's his job to hype up and advocate and point out the greatness or how talented Mark Williams is. What he didn't do, he didn't hold a press conference. He didn't go, I have the medicals right here and I can show proof that he didn't do that. You know why he didn't do that? Because he can't do that. I don't think the UCLA physicians, I don't think the Lakers team doctors and their staffs conspired to say that Mark Williams failed a physical. Everybody that knows basketball knows Luka, LeBron, they were very much looking for a long, athletic big who could finish at the rim and protect the paint. According to the doctors, though, Mark Williams has the body structure of Mr. Glass. And why would you sign Mr. Glass if you know at some point the man's going to be over there in street clothes? Why? So this is not a conspiracy. Had he actually passed a physical and the Lakers believed that he could physically hold up, he'd be a Laker. Just point blank, period. I totally understand why his agent's saying this, because maybe the Hornets try to move him again somewhere else, but other teams are like, I heard this guy, if he falls out of bed, he's liable to break something. So I totally get why you would say that, but you're saying that because you're literally paid to say those types of things. It's not a shock that his agent would go, we refute that. But if you really refute that, hold a press conference, bring the medicals, and make those medicals accessible to the media. That will never happen.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at too. He continuously keeps refuting these reports, and I almost think that I think it's the opposite with Mark Williams. I think his body really just is, I'm not going to say it's wrecked, because obviously he can still play basketball, but I definitely think it's worse than, those two are letting on. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to the Lakers, yeah, we all know that LeBron and Luka wanted that big role man in the middle, and Mark Williams on paper would have been perfect. I don't think that the Lakers are going to conspire against their own deal and go, yeah, you know what, we changed our mind, we don't want Mark.
Because we wanted to do something really awkward, like we wanted to shut this trade down, so we wanted to make it awkward in the locker room so Dalton Connect can come back and go, yeah, like, you guys really want me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not a plan. That's not a thing. I have no problem with his agent doing his job. That's his job. And I wish Mark Williams well. And I really did want him on the Lakers, because a healthy Mark Williams, or at least a Mark Williams that they believed could hold up going forward, he would have been a great help to a Lakers team that they don't have any rim protection. And they don't really have guys that rebound at a high level. So it's going to be a struggle going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I promise you, they didn't look and go, we're getting Alex Len. We're all good. Like, I promise you that did not happen.
Yeah. That's the master plan. Let's nix this trade because Alex Len's available.
Gotcha. Oh, I was watching some of that game against Charlotte, and anytime it was a Luka Len pick and roll, just put 2 points on the board. Neither of them could move very well. Which, that's actually, it's funny because, Mo, isn't that kind of playing out exactly how we said it would, that this was a trade really for next year and not this year? Luka's come in, he's been a little rough. Him and LeBron haven't figured out how to play together yet.
No, go ahead. Finish up, and then I'll come in. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I just wanted to say this is exactly what we thought it would be, or at least how I thought this would turn out, guys.
Hey, what's up, Will?
A move for next year. What's up, Will? This is a move for next year. It was a great trade to make. It was the right trade to make. Luka might struggle now. He might struggle for the rest of the year, but give it more time. I'm already seeing the Luka's wash. Put him in the Shaq on the Celtics category. Just give it more time, guys. I promise you. By this time next year, we won't even be remembering these struggles.
If you want to make this work, though, you have to let Luka be Luka. And the first step in letting Luka be Luka, you have to put the ball in his hands. he has to be the primary ball handler. And LeBron's doing the don't fit out, fit in bit. That's all well and good, but LeBron still got the ball in his hands 85, 90% of the time. You can't have Luka over in the corner. That's not going to work out well for you or him. The best version of Luka Doncic is when he has the ball in his hands and he is the primary ball handler. And until the Lakers find that balance and defer or stagger their minutes, because I think they might be better with their minutes staggered than on the floor together, unless it's a late game situation. They're going to be struggles. Think about what we did. His debut was against Utah. His second game was against Utah. His third game was against the Hornets. Again, these aren't juggernauts. This is what I call a soft landing. You get to play the Jazz twice, who at the time was a 12-win team. Then you get to play the Hornets, who at the time, I think they were a 13 or 14-win team. And then last night, you played the Blazers. I don't care if they got a winning streak. They're still not a good basketball team. It's a flukish streak. They're not good. And the Lakers looked actually better last night, minus Luka, which isn't a good thing because it looks funky right now because too many people are going where they're both elite players. They both have high basketball IQs, terrific passers, all those things are true, but they're also both ball dominant players. And you're going to have to find a way, if you really want to get the most out of this, and make Luka the man. It's got to be Luka's team. You're right, Brett. You said it at the time. This trade is for next year, not this year. My only question is, if it's for next year and there's going to be these power struggles of who's the guy or who's going to be the primary, maybe this offseason we talk about LeBron finding greener pastures. Because I don't know if this is going to work. I said it's going to be funky at times. It's going to struggle at times. And it's going to even hurt them more on the other end. Because usually when the Lakers play teams, LeBron guards the guy who's the least proficient scorer. Well, Luka does the same thing. So now LeBron's got to guard somebody who's more of a primary, and then you try to hide Luka. Although if you watch the Hornets game, to the Hornets' credit, they refused to let Luka hide, and they hunted him all throughout the fourth quarter, and he couldn't. And there was nothing he could do about it. They hunted Alex Len too, but hell, I can hunt Alex Len. The point I'm making is, you have to invest in Luka. You have to also think about it. If it's a trade for the future, Brett, like you brought up, and I think you're right, you have to make Luka feel like this is his team. Because remember, if he doesn't feel like this is his team, when they offer him the 2-year extension this offseason, if that guy says no, if he says no, I'll pass on the 2-year extension because he just doesn't feel right there. He doesn't feel like it's home there. What do the Lakers do then? Because that in a perfect world, they find a way to get it together. There's chemistry. They have some success. Maybe they make it to the second round, and Luka feels empowered and feels part of that franchise. But what if it goes the other way just because they haven't found ways to play together? It's a real possibility that Luka goes, I appreciate everything you guys have done for me, your confidence in me, but I don't want to be here. Then what happens?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a weird situation. It's funny too with that whole situation because you look at the play styles of both guys. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, hey, LeBron James is actually just a much better off-ball player than Luka.
Correct.
Maybe we should just give Luka the ball, have LeBron run off-ball more. You don't turn LeBron into just a spot-up specialist. And LeBron's don't fit in, fit out. Come on, he said the same thing to Kevin Love, but we knew where that one was going. So,
right.
He says that every new superstar he gets, and I appreciate the message, but I understand what he's saying. But if you really want Luka to fit out, give him the ball and just really run the entire show through him.
Yeah, I really think JJ Redick should look to just get with Luka and LeBron and go, I'm going to stagger your minutes more, Luka, where you can be the primary and be out there with the other guys. Maybe you and Austin Reeves can play more together. And you're right. LeBron's got an extra high basketball IQ. He moves well off the ball. LeBron won't just spot up in the corner. He'll go to the corners, but then he'll also cut back door. He also has the ability to post. Like there are different ways you can use LeBron, who even though he's 40, again, to his credit, He's still a much, I can keep going, much more athletic player than Luka will ever be. There are more different ways that you can diversify with LeBron and do different things with him than you can with Luka. I think if you're Jeannie Buss, if you're Rob Pelinka, if you're JJ Redick, if you're that head of that monster, this franchise, you have to be thinking what you see out on the floor. There's no way Luka feels good about his first few games as a Laker, averaging about 15 points a game, shooting under 40%. Like there's no way he feels good. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're invested in him and you want him to invest back into the franchise, you better find a better way to make him feel like he is the guy that you say he is to you. Because as great as LeBron is, LeBron's not part of your future.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Obviously, I'll still throw the disclaimer: we're still early into all these trades, so
true.
Like, I promise you, like, Luka didn't forget how to play basketball. Kevin Porter Jr. didn't become a better player than him in like the span of 3 games. So it definitely got to let this entire scenario play out. And speaking of moves, Mo, we got another league, the NFL, that we had an announcement and we got a couple of moves that are looking to be made. The announcement, obviously, we got Cowboys guard Zach Martin. He's calling it a career. He's done. He's going to retire. And all I can say is congratulations to Zach Martin.
Great career.
You definitely deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I think the only question is, which ballot are you getting in on? So congratulations to Zach Martin for a great career. I can't wait to see you in Canton.
I think he walks in as a first ballot. 9-time Pro Bowler, 7-time first team All-Pro, made the second team All-Pro twice, was ranked in the top 5, I think, of linemen like multiple years. Like, I think he walks into the Hall of Fame. This isn't an Eli thing. He's going to be first ballot. He's going to be first ballot.
There's one name that keeps throwing me off when it comes to like if he's going to be first ballot or not. Because I really thought Marshall Yanda was good enough to be first ballot too, but
that's fair.
I do, like, at first I was thinking Zach Martin, first ballot Hall of Famer. And then I realized, like, for some reason, like, our offensive linemen and like guards, and they just seem to be like very underappreciated in what they do.
Agreed.
So I think he's a first ballot too, but I always seem to get offensive linemen first ballot wrong because they're very underappreciated. I you know what I would love to see, Mo? I would almost love to see like an award for offensive linemen.
I like that. I love that because, one, what they do too many times goes unnoticed, not by their teammates, but by the public, because they don't highlight offensive line play often. They highlight left tackles, but they usually highlight left tackles when they don't play well. I love the idea of having an award for the best offensive lineman or something like that, because how else will they get truly recognized other than Pro Bowls and All Pros? Because they're never going to win MVP. As great as Jonathan Ogden was, Anthony Munoz, the great Will Shields, who's a friend, I don't think any of them ever had a shot at being an MVP, a league MVP. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say there was never an offensive lineman, at least in the modern era, that ever won MVP.
No, and a lot of them don't even have a chance to win like an award. Definitely not even award like Offensive Player of the Year, which I think over the years there's been like plenty of offensive linemen who ironically probably should have been in the discussion because of how good, they were and how dominant. But that's why I almost think it'd be fun just to have like an offensive lineman of the year, or even if you just want to honor the entire unit, offensive line of the year. Call it like the Joe Thomas Award. I would absolutely be here for it.
I like that.
Or name it, or like Bruce Matthews. Like, there's no shortage of offensive linemen that you could name an award like that after.
I got another guy that you can name it after, Larry Allen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just think that would be giving them their flowers and a big up to them. So I'm on board with you. I hope the commission company think about really doing this. It's okay to put the spotlight on the guys in the trenches who do all the dirty work. Saquon Barkley is an amazing running back, and he's deserving of all the praise he gets. But there is a reason why that when Saquon was with the Giants, he was a guy that was giving you 1,200-yard seasons or an 1,100-yard season. And then he went to the Eagles, and it was like going to living on Park Avenue. He rushed for 2,000 yards. There's a difference. Part of that is his talent, but clearly the other part is he was playing with the best line in the NFL. It's a fact. As great as Derrick Henry was, he goes to the Ravens, and he's I think he's age 31. In his age 31 season, and gives you 1,900 yards. He's great, but that has a lot to do with their offensive linemen. So I'm with you. Put some flowers, get an award, so the offensive lineman, the old lineman, can get some shine.
And it's funny, another guy I always think about the offensive line for, ironically, is my guy, at his peak, Aaron Rodgers. You look at those Packers teams and you go, well, the defense doesn't look good. He really only had one consistent wide receiver to throw to. James Starks and Eddie Lacy at running back. Like how in the world did he do everything that he did in the mid 2010s? And then you look closer, oh, he consistently had the best offensive line in the league for years. That was a huge boost to him. So yeah, that was something I thought about when I was discussing Aaron Rodgers with somebody. I'm like, man, these O linemen got to get more love because they're just absolutely insane in what they do and don't get recognized for it.
Agreed. Look at Detroit's offensive line, by the way, another great offensive line. I love that you bring that up. So look, I truly hope that they find a way to get on board with the idea that the O linemen need their own shine, their own award. Because at least on defense, you can win a defensive player of the year, right? That's that opportunity. If you're a great edge rusher or an elite corner or linebacker or whatever, you can win. There is an award for defenders out there. There's nothing for O linemen.
No, absolutely. And speaking of Aaron Rodgers, obviously he's a free agent. He's not going back to the Jets. So I guess my question, Mo, is out of all of the possible Aaron Rodgers destinations, where do you see fit? Last report I saw, obviously with Aaron Rodgers, he's not being very picky. He just goes, I want you to have a good football team, which is fair. I doubt he was trying to rebuild, going into year 21. So where do you see Aaron Rodgers ending up?
Well, I mean, a lot of people think he's going to go to the Steelers. I think that would be a mistake on his part and their part. I think Aaron Rodgers should just follow the same path as Brett Favre. It's right there in front of him. The team is already built to win. They've got elite talent on the outside. They've got a terrific running back who he's familiar with. You go to the Vikings. You go to if he wants to, because he needs to go to a team that's a contender. That's a contender. Go to the Vikings. And look, if you want to get some payback against the old team, that works too. But I think the Vikings and Aaron Rodgers make sense because, one, I don't know how much they value Sam Darnold, even though he had a career year. Remember, JJ is still there. JJ is their quarterback for the future. So if JJ is going to be the quarterback for the future and he's on a rookie deal and you can sign Aaron Rodgers to a 2-year deal, it stands to reason that's a smart move for the Vikings and a smart move for Aaron Rodgers if he wants to go to a team that's instantly competitive.
I mean, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. It's really tough to, pinpoint which team that he would want to go to. I think there's some interesting ones out there, right? I think the best bet would be to go to a team ironically like the Vikings, because every other team you look at that needs a quarterback is really, really shaky.
Offensively, the only reason I'm not cool about Pittsburgh, Brett, is because I don't think they have a lot of talent in terms of skill positions.
Oh,
like Pickens is, like I said, I've always said he's their best receiver, but he's not a number one. He's not. So I think Aaron Rodgers would be more frustrated in Pittsburgh than he was with the Jets. You go to Minnesota, Addison already looks like almost a one, like a one, even though he's there too. That they have talent across the board. I mean, if you want to get wonky and say something insane that I don't think is going to happen, the Niners don't pay Purdy and they bring in Rodgers. It's insanity to me as a Niners fan, but then John Lynch has done some insane things over the years. So I'm not saying it's likely, but I would say the Niners would be a better choice than Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think the most wonk it would work. I've heard some people say like the Colts, and I'm like, I don't like. You have Jonathan Taylor and you have Pittman, but
he's not a one either.
I'm not very high on the Colts. If you want to go to a team with weapons that might be, a little overlooked, why not the Atlanta Falcons? They have Drake London. They have someone like Bijan Robinson.
He's amazing.
They have weapons at the skill position. The real problem is pass rusher, and who knows if Michael Penix is ready. And the thing with a team like the Falcons, Mo, that division is wide open.
It is.
I think the Bucks could very easily, regress. They might lose out on, Godwin this year, which is, I know Godwin suffered an injury and they still made it work without him, but that's still going to be a big loss no matter what way you slice it.
That's an interesting one. I actually think the Falcons is interesting, but I think that's not impossible, but I would be shocked because they moved out a veteran quarterback to make Penix the guy. I think Penix is going to be the guy.
Yeah, it's weird with Penix. I like Penix, but I don't think he's ready to be the guy yet. And I think if the Falcons have like reservations about him being ready to be the guy right now, then I think you could maybe look to bring in Rodgers on a 1-year deal. I think Penix can be the guy.
I'm a huge Penix fan.
I think Penix has to clean up some of his footwork, his accuracy, because he was smoking some pretty basic throws, and I think he can be the guy, but I still think he has enough to clean up where I don't think it's completely impossible that you look to bring in somebody for one more year and let Penix learn under them. That isn't, Kirk Cousins, but that's kind of another issue, depending how much he'd want. They still have Kirk Cousins on the roster, and I'm sure it'd be a huge dead cap to get rid of him.
Yeah, I think Kirk Cousins is going to end up somewhere else. I think Kirk Cousins is going to end up somebody else's starter at some point.
And there's one more interesting guy I wanted to bring up, Mo. T. Higgins. Now, I might be in the minority here, but I think re-signing T. Higgins is a mistake for the Bengals. I think the Bengals already have shown the ability to identify talent at the wide receiver position. I think that the Bengals are a team that should do that again. I think the Bengals are a team that has a lot of holes on the defensive side of their roster. And I know they want to bring back, Higgins, Hendrickson. But the problem with bringing back those guys is Hendrickson's going to get top of the line defensive end money or close to it. Higgins is going to want near top of the line wide receiver money. At that point, you're running it back with pretty much the same team you had last year, plus like 7 new rookies. And how much better is that team really from last year? I agree. I almost think it'd be smarter to save the cap space. Let T. Higgins walk. Not saying that T. Higgins isn't a phenomenal talent. He absolutely is. But I think when you're a team like the Bengals and you have as many holes as you do, especially on the defensive side of the ball, you can't afford to just run it back. Otherwise, there's a very real chance you're just completely stuck in mediocrity again.
I actually agree with you on this partner. So I guess we're in the same minority. I love T. Higgins as a football player, as a talent. But if you franchise tag him, that's $26 million. That's just on the franchise. Burrow already makes like 46, 47. That, like, just those two alone and then you factor in you're going to pay Hendrickson, and then you factor in you got to pay Jamar Chase. What do you do with the other 44, 45 guys you got to pay? Like, I'm with you. You can't pay all of them. So who's more valuable, T. Higgins or the edge rusher? The edge rusher. You already have a number one wide receiver. As good as T. Higgins is, what does it matter if you have him and Jamar Chase in a shaky offensive line in a defense that gives up 30-plus points a game? Not much. I'm trying to broker a deal where I can get value back for T. Higgins, or maybe even let him go outright if I can't. But I can't keep T. Higgins, pay Hendrickson, then pay Chase a huge contract to try to build out the rest of my roster. What you're asking my scouting staff to do is, we're going to retain all these guys. They're going to take up more than half our cap, just the four of them. And I want you to go out and hit on every draft pick. That way we'll be really good still, even though we'll have a bunch of rookies. Like, that doesn't happen ever in the current NFL. Like, I'm really impressed what the Rams were able to do with their young players, but that happened on year 2. They all hit year 2, some of them. That didn't happen right away. If you already have your franchise quarterback in place, you need to build on your defensive line and you need to improve your offensive line. But you can't do that if you're going to put half your salary cap into 4 players. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and the number I've heard about Jamar Chase, Mo, $40 million, close to that number.
Whew.
So let's say theoretically the numbers are close. So you're paying Jamar Chase, let's say $40 million or close to it. Okay, you got to pay Trey Hendrickson, let's say another $25 million a year, somewhere in that area. That's already $65 million. And now, like, how much can you realistically give T. Higgins without sinking the team? I don't think that there's really a number. I don't think you can go high enough to make T happy. So
no,
just shake his hand. Thank you for your service. And go find your new team if you want. If you don't mind, we'll do a sign and trade, get some assets back, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I think they have to be looking forward. You have to be forward thinking as a franchise. And look, Gene always points this out. Cincinnati's ownership, their leadership team, they've never been forward thinking, and they more times than not they're known for being, let's say, very frugal or AKA cheap when it comes to the dollar. Like, they could have saved themselves money had they gotten Chase's deal done last year. Now it's gone up that much more because he was the Triple Crown winner at wide receiver this past season. They could have signed T. Higgins a year ago at a lower number, maybe made it work better then. And here's the thing I'll say. I do think Hendrickson is more valuable than T. Higgins, but I do want to remind people he is 31. He's 31. He's a 31-year-old edge rusher. He's a terrific player, but how long do you think he's going to play at an elite level? That's difficult to measure. So maybe they go another way and they trade him and bring in, try to get some more trade assets. Like, I think they just have to be smarter, and you have to do moves that set Joe Burrow up. So where can they improve at? Offensive line, defensive line. They need playmakers on both sides of the football. It's a tough league, but I don't think Cincinnati is built right now to be able to afford 2 high-end wide receivers. I just don't see that.
That's the also interesting part about Hendrickson, and that's why I know that he's probably not taking any, discount. This is his last chance to get a massive payday, and that man's going to cash in. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Cincinnati. And but wanted to cap off the morning show by talking about some sports entertainment. Mo and I are both wrestling fans, and last night we received word that the final boss, The Rock, will be on SmackDown tonight. It sounds like he might be opening the show. Now, I'm curious on what you think, Mo. Do you think this has anything to do with an involvement at WrestleMania 41? Is he just announcing the location of WrestleMania 42? What do you think The Rock is doing tonight?
You know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I think he does both those things, but I think he also stirs the pot in terms of storytelling because The Rock can have an impact on WrestleMania without even performing, right? You know it. I know it because how do I know that he doesn't come out and start talking about Seth Rollins and what Seth Rollins did to Roman Reigns? How do I know instead of what we thought we were going to get, how do I know that somehow you don't get Rock versus Seth Rollins, which would be awesome, by the way? I think it's going to go storytelling. Or what if we get heel Rock? What if the final boss comes out and goes, well, Roman disappointed me or Solo disappointed me? There's so many different ways he can go because the bloodline is in disarray. Maybe he's going to come out and praise Jay and be excited for Jay, who's going to get a shot against Gunther at WrestleMania. Like I think Rock, one thing he's been great at throughout his career, Brett, is being on the mic. I think he's going to touch on everything you said, but he's going to give us a little sizzle to where we're like, oh, it's an open-handed question. Is he going to compete? Is he going to get involved? Like, I think he's going to go for the triple double and give us a little bit of everything.
And it's funny because people are talking about this WrestleMania, right? This is his last WrestleMania to possibly compete. But I was thinking on it, Mo. What if he's kind of is doing both? But what if we're taking like a Rock versus John Cena build and taking it to Rock versus Roman? What if we are getting the match? But we get it next year. We give Rock a full year to prepare for it, to build it up, to train for it. Give him time to do his, I heard he got to do some Moana research shoots or whatever he has to clear up in Hollywood. What if it is both? And what if we do get Rock and Roman as the main event in New Orleans next year? I think that would be, because it almost feels like the card's already getting kind of full this year, right? The Rock's going to want to be the main event. All right, who are you kicking out? Are you kicking out Cody out of the main event spot? Are you kicking out John Cena if he wins? Are you kicking out Cena Cody? Are you kicking out there's Jay Gunther? If I had to take a guess, if he wrestles this year, it's going to be Jay Gunther getting kicked out of the main event spot. Or whatever, there's also the women's matches that could be the main event. Those are all taking a backseat to the Rock and Roman.
You make a great point. I hope just listening to what you said, I hope he doesn't wrestle this year because I don't think it's fair to Gunther and Jay that they get kicked out. You know what I'm saying? Or a couple of the women's matches, I don't think it's fair that he takes a slot away from them. I think you just said something that's really smart that I didn't even think of. But that's why you're always ahead of the game. He's setting it up for next WrestleMania.
And if I were him, I would absolutely swerve everybody. I would say, yeah, I'm just here to announce WrestleMania 42's in New Orleans. Peace, guys. And I would completely swerve everybody until the night of WrestleMania. Just imagine we open up the show with a triple threat with Roman, Seth, and Punk, or whatever direction they're going. And Roman doesn't win that match. Why? Because The Rock sneaks in and hits him with a rock bottom to set up a match for next year. Like, if I'm The Rock, I'm almost like, if I'm actually having one more match next year, Mo, I'm absolutely telling everybody, yeah, hey, I got to go back to Hollywood, but, WrestleMania is in New Orleans. I'm out. And then I'm going to try to swerve everybody and just absolutely shock everybody by interfering in whoever I'm facing next year. My guess, Roman Reigns. So I would have him sneak into WrestleMania, and I would have a surprise, and boom, you set up Roman Rock for WrestleMania 42, and everybody still gets their main event spot.
No, I love that idea. If we get that matchup finally, I love this. I love the setup. It'll have everybody buzzing. It gives Rock time to get ready to gear up for the match. And I'm here for it. I love that idea. I hope Triple H and Creative are thinking that way too, because I think that's the best path to go and build up this match that we've been waiting for it seems like forever.
Nah, absolutely. And I'm curious too, because I almost feel like, I feel like it's going to be Jey Uso and Gunther in the main event. However, we all know WWE loves their flares. So I'm curious to see if they actually maybe pulled the trigger on a, only the second time ever women's main event of WrestleMania for night one. Or is it going to be Jey versus Gunther? I think both matches are, very deserving. But, there's an idea, I know a lot of people think it's going to be Jey Gunther, and I'm just going to throw this out there. Don't be shocked if it's Tiffany Charlotte in the main event of WrestleMania this year. With,
Mo raises his hand. Mo raises his hand. I love Jey Uso. I love Gunther as a performer. But if you're asking me which of those matches would have more buzz, which would be more amazing, I actually think it's Charlotte and Tiff.
Now, I will add this part too. Do not have Charlotte and Tiffany main event if the ending to the match is Charlotte winning.
Oh, yeah.
That you want WrestleMania to end on a good note, and I just don't think that, like, everybody's already turning on Charlotte. Nobody wants to see Charlotte beat Tiffany.
Which I love, by the way, because she's embraced the heel role.
Yeah, absolutely. And unless you really want everybody booing everybody out of the building at WrestleMania, I almost feel like it would put a damper on the mood a little bit. And I also think that just Charlotte going over Tiffany is the wrong move. I think that you have a chance to really make a superstar out of Tiffany Stratton here. I think she'd be one of those rare people that can go, yeah, I beat Charlotte Flair in a big pay-per-view match.
Right. And look, it doesn't hurt Charlotte Flair to lose that match. You know what I mean? Like, she's already one of those goated wrestlers. It doesn't hurt her. What it does is it elevates Tiff. I think it elevates WWE because I think Tiff is built to be the next superstar. And the way I see it is Charlotte's going to win another belt. She will be a champion again, but it doesn't have to be at WrestleMania. It could be somewhere down the line. Hell, it could be on a Raw show during the season in 2025. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't have to be there. On the biggest night, if you want WrestleMania to come to a satisfying ending that fans can take in and enjoy, yeah, you're right. Charlotte can't beat Tiff. Tiff's got to be able to do that moonsault and hit that and end that match, and everybody just come out of the seats because, like you said, it's a very short list of players or wrestlers that have beaten Charlotte Flair in a main event match.
And I'll kind of end on this note. I don't think, a lot of people say, Tiffany would get buried by losing to Charlotte. I don't think that's the case. I think that Tiffany would still look like a star, but I think this match is kind of the difference maker. Do you want Tiffany to be a star or a superstar? Because a face of the company, a superstar, beat Charlotte Flair one-on-one. Look at the list of people who have done it. Rhea Ripley, Becky Lynch, even someone like, Sasha Banks is now one of the biggest stars in wrestling still. The list of people who beat Charlotte one-on-one, normally they go to the moon. They become superstars. And that's kind of why I think Tiffany has to win. Tiffany's going to be a star regardless, but you want to push her to the next level, give her that clean victory over Charlotte at WrestleMania.
Agreed. That is so spot on. I'm with you. I want to see Tiffany become the next superstar and have a lengthy run.
No, absolutely. And That's all the time we have for today, Mo. Do you have anything you want to say before we get up on out of here?
Appreciate everybody for joining you and I this morning. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you.
No, absolutely. You can catch Mo and I again this coming Tuesday for the Meaty Boys podcast. We'll talk about whatever happens on SmackDown with The Rock tonight and so much more. Catch us on the And One podcast next Thursday. Well, it's looking like we're doing a watch along to Bucks Nuggets, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you check us out. But in the meantime, I hope everybody has a great weekend and enjoy the rest of your day.